Welcome back to Wind Tunnel. I'm Jack Arute, and I am excited and pleased to be joined by, well, let's just say an individual that says what comes into his head, and more often than not, actually hits a key point when he's there as part of the NASCAR on Fox team up in the booth. We're talking about Bowyer himself, Clint Bowyer. CB, so great to have you join us. And I meant what I said. You represent every man when you sit up there in the booth. And 99.9% of the time, you're spot on, dude.
Well, man, I appreciate it. Who would have thought that would even work for me? Here's a kid that grew up racing, not a very good vocabulary, don't like reading books. And I'm like, oh my God, what do you want me to, you're going to put me on national television talking like this? But honestly, I have a blast up there. I really enjoy, working with Mike Joy and just the other side of our sport that honestly, I never really realized even happened. You go out there and you race, you come in, you go to dinner on a Tuesday night and you recognize the impact of the sport in which you make a living, in the sense that people recognize you, right? But you have no idea when you're racing and competing week in and week out, how the hell that all comes about. And then when you flip the page to the next chapter in your career and you get into that TV world, immediately you're just in awe of the work that goes into putting that product on everybody's television. And again, love working with Mike Joy. Obviously we had a ton of fun with Jeff Gordon last year in the booth. This year with a kind of revolving door, so to speak, it's been challenging in its own, but honestly, I enjoy that fresh approach every week of, you never know who the hell you're going to be talking to and what perspective, what background they come from. We've had drivers, we've had Chad Canals to the last couple of weeks. That's a complete different perspective. And everybody knows, right, that the driver crew chief, chemistry is where all the magic happens. And then when it doesn't happen, my favorite part is bickering back and forth. You stupid ass driver, the damn things, you're not doing your job. Well, if your damn car was fast, I could get the job done, So that interaction's been so much fun.
And yet, that's a sneak peek behind the curtain of any successful auto racing enterprise, whether it's on the weekly short tracks or at the ultimate at the NASCAR Cup level. I mean, I would say through your career, Bowyer, behind the wheel, you had more than your share of, shall we just classify them as heated exchanges with the guy, whoever it was, on top of the box.
Well, right. And I've been at all, I've had every manufacturer. I've been with 3 different organizations. I mean, I was the mutt of a race car driver, and some of them worked and some of them didn't. That being said, I learned a lot from both sides of that. The best years of my career, the best year that I ever had was with Brian Patty, as a matter of fact. 2012, 2013, dude, we were hitting on all 8 cylinders. That we operated it like it was supposed to be. And I have no idea why it worked. When I said that damn thing was loose getting into, Juan, he just knew, right? We spoke the same language, and he could always wake that car up to what I needed, what I was asking out of it. And then the flip side of that, I've had it to where it wasn't there, and doesn't mean that they weren't qualified or I wasn't qualified to get the job done behind the car, but that chemistry, our communication just didn't jive. Like if I said zig, he zagged, and you're like, what? And that's when it comes out. What in the blue hell did you just do to this thing? I said it was loose, not tight, and it's like, holy cow, how did we get to this side? Like it was, completely polar opposites, and and it didn't work at times. But again, going back to my new job in that booth, I think both sides, having the experience of both sides of that really helped me, when you're kind of talking about organization or a race team, or why somebody's really rolling and why somebody's not.
As Clint Bowyer, TV analyst, is he any different than Clint Bowyer, NASCAR Cup driver?
I try not to be. At times, there was a couple of times already, I've only been doing it about a year and a half, that I left a little bit, not ashamed, but frustrated with myself, knowing that I should have, every week you have that, right? The odd something comes up and you're like, damn, I wish I'd have called that differently or worded that differently. Like I said, vocabulary is not my strong suit.
Yeah.
But there's only been a couple instances where I just missed the call. And I, from my perspective, I felt like I missed the call. Obviously every time you make a comment, 50% of your audience is going to agree with you and the other half isn't. I mean, that's just where we're at in today's world, right? You got about 50% thinking your way. That being said, I remember, hell, it was California this year. Chase Elliott spun out, he did it on purpose, right? He didn't like, he got wronged and he tried to make a right out of it, and not something that it's something that I've done, right? And I stayed off of it, and quite frankly I should have done. I should have called him out on it. That's my job to do. And I stayed off of it, and I kind of wish I didn't have, but I can tell you this, I'm glad that I did, in the sense that if you would have, you're going to pay the price. Now you're going to do media interviews all week long. Everybody's going to be asking, you're going to, half your fan base is going to hate you, which, by the way, is the most popular driver. I mean, it's just, that kind of stuff, you think about after the fact, when you're up there, it happens this fast, just like you're in the race car. But when you get home and Monday morning quarterback it, just like everybody does on their couch, you're like, damn, missed that one.
Well, let me come to your defense, all right? That is no different, my friend, than when you go hurtling down into a corner and after the fact, and on Monday, when you look at the video from the in-car, you say, oh, crap, I shouldn't have hit him in that corner.
Right.
Oh,
100%.
It's no
that's
different.
What we love about racing, right? Is there's another lap. There's another 1/10 of a second, and it comes at you really quick. But that was just an instance where, you asked where that ever, where the parallel is in that. And for the most part, it's almost spot on. I love, when I came into that, I kind of thought to myself, right? You have anything in life, you have a new endeavor. You're like, all right, how can I make this unique? How can I bring my perspective and my character into a world in which I've been hired to do? And for me, my goal and what I wanted to accomplish in that booth every week was your viewer to feel like I was bench racing with them, sitting on their couch in their living room, calling this race. From my background, my, lifetime experience in racing, I want them to feel like I'm sitting in the couch and we're having a beer together, hanging out, and again, sometimes the racing has a little bit to say with that. Sometimes you can be spot on and nail it. And other times the race is a little stretched out and you got to sell it a little bit. But nonetheless, I want people to feel like I'm hanging out with them.
Clint, you live in two worlds by your choice. One, hey, you'll always be a driver, okay? First and foremost. But now you're part of the air quotes media. How does a guy like you coexist with both? It's one thing to have your Tuesday morning meeting with everybody at Fox. It's another thing to go and maybe shotgun a couple of beers with Kyle Larson and his bride. So how do you balance the two and never stop or sacrifice Clint Bowyer?
I think, you just do it. You gotta live, man. And I'll never let a job, whether it was racing or, being a broadcaster in that booth every week, change that. I'm going to live. I've made a good enough living that I'm going to be fine. I'm doing this because I want to do it. I'm doing it because I'm passionate about the sport, racing in general. And I truly love NASCAR. I believe in the product. I believe in our fan base, that the system works. The engine is there, and such a viable product if you use it correctly. And I think the biggest part of that is media. From my new perspective, I wasn't always the best interview, but I know that I was better than most. I knew that. And it wasn't like I tried to be any different. It's just everybody's personality is different. That being said, from this new perspective, you got kids that didn't grow up with their old man owning a towing service and in and out of service shops, heckling the service driver or heckling the muffler shop, and working in race shops and punching a time card. I laughed the other day. I was like, wonder how many of these kids out here on this racetrack right now have ever had their name on top of a time card. I mean, think about that. I bet you there's less than 5. That's pretty incredible, but that's just how the sport has changed, how, the stepping stones of this sport have changed. I mean, I grew up a working class, like my first race car was built behind a Goodyear tire store. I was 16 years old working in a tire store, for crying out loud. I didn't want to go to high school. The only reason I graduated high school is because they had an automotive program at a Vote Technical school across the street. That's literally how I made it through high school. I wanted to be around horsepower and something that burnt gasoline, and that's just the way I was. These kids today aren't raised that way. They're homeschooled, probably in preparation to be a race car driver. And sometimes they miss that social aspect of life, so it's not to mention that doesn't say that they don't have character, that they don't have that in them. I think it's on us to ask them different questions, drag that out of them. Already in my broadcasting experience, you're out there on the grid, you float the old standard. What do you got for a car out there? What's your outlook for today? You're going to get a pretty vanilla generic answer. Stop them. Stop yourself. You better dig in deeper, ask them a different question, get them off, kick them back on their heels a little bit. Float something funny across there to break the ice a little bit. And I believe that that's on us to be able to do that, because I think the star power is there. I'm sorry, Dale Earnhardt wasn't a star when he grew up. He wasn't raised, to be the badass. And when I say badass, I don't mean just in that race car. He owned the sport. He owned the merchandise. He owned the interviews. Everybody in America wanted to be Dale Earnhardt. I don't think that a William Byron or anything else, that those kids are capable of being that. So I think that, a lot of that is on us to get those interviews out of them and bring that to people's television. So where they like, I can get behind that guy. I dig him.
Me too. I dig you. You know why? For 50 damn years, I had the same approach. And it wasn't that I was trying to, bazinga a guy, but I didn't want the bull crap of I just feel real bad for my Square D family and, the guys back at the shop. When somebody's car upside down just filled his front windshield and that's his freaking answer. So I can identify with what you're saying.
Right.
I'm really interested though, Clint, because this next gen car, we waited, we saw it developed. There's so many talking points that we've all covered to the point where let's just get on with it. So from your perspective, how do you grade the next gen car and what it's done for the Cup Series?
I'm still giving it an A. Jack, I'm telling you, it deserves an A because of what I've seen on mile and a half. Let's rewind. The mile and a half through the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a reason we built them. Our sport was skyrocketing. We needed bigger venues to park all these people. We had all this stuff going on, and we needed that. It served a purpose. It was good racing. It created a big environment for everybody to really throw down on a NASCAR weekend. Then it just went south. They were terrible. They were stale. My home track, my favorite go-to track, right? Kansas. It's supposed to be, in theory, my favorite track. I hate the damn place. I hate that mile and a half and pretty much all of the mile and a halves. This new car has over-delivered on every intermediate track we've had. Over-delivered at Daytona. Holy crap. Look at Daytona, how crazy Daytona was. Talladega's coming in a couple weeks. It's going to be the same way. Short tracks. Now, all of a sudden, we got the first of 5 short tracks. We roll into Richmond. We've had chaotic finishes. We've had more cautions and carnage and wild things that you never could have, previewed in a race weekend happen. Get to that short track in Richmond, right back to the same old boring Richmond. And when I say old, when I first started my career, Richmond was the action track. It was the go-to track that everybody loved. You get in that car, and I mean, you worked your ass off. You were, nose to the grindstone, grinding it out every lap. Things trying to swap ends on you, trying to push through the corner into the guy on the outside of you. Your workload was through the roof, trying to pass the guy, force the guy into a mistake, only to go to the next corner and make the damn mistake yourself. You're like, shit, that was there and it was alive. So I don't know. I think we've over delivered on the mile and a half, the intermediates, and then we get to these short tracks and we've got a lot of work to do. I think it proves that same principle, the same race car can't possibly perform the same on a 200-mile-an-hour Las Vegas as it can on a 80-mile-an-hour Martinsville. We've got to work on that. I think it's serious. I think it's obvious already. 2 of the 5 short tracks we've already had, and I've seen enough. Jack, we need an adjustment, and I worry that they're not going to answer that call. I think we're going to ride it out. I think we're going to say it was too cold in Martinsville, and that was the case. Why the tire didn't wear and things like that. I call bull crap. I'm sorry. You got to. I already told the brass at NASCAR. I voiced my opinion and said, hey, man, nobody's more passionate about this sport and is trying to make sure that we over deliver with this car and under promise. And I didn't like what I saw over those first 2 short tracks.
Well, I think an awful lot of people are starting to echo your attitude, because the one thing, and I'm not being certainly, far be it from me to be a shill for NASCAR, but I have said from the beginning that this is a work in progress. I didn't say it because I came up with it, Clint. I said it because they kept pounding that into our heads from the beginning and in the development. So as you just said, and I echo your sentiment, it really is a case where let's see what they do to address the problems. And the same danger when you unloaded off the truck and you had a really good car, hey, great. But if you just said, let's stand pat, let's call, instead of maybe taking the draw, well, by the time you got to the money laps, the car was crap. If we're not careful, we could encounter the same thing. Hey, before I let you go,
hold on a minute. I'm not done selling this.
Go.
I'm telling you, don't give up on this car. We've got to hold them accountable, right? You got to give praise because this car has over delivered on these intermediate tracks. That being said, we had an extra year to prepare for this. An extra year. Don't forget, this car was supposed to be on the track last year. We postponed that, waited a year, and then we get to a Martinsville, and we don't have the gearing figured out to where, that those cars should have been on the racetrack at a short track. We should have known that shifting was going to come up and address that already. Didn't do that. That's on us as a sport. That's on the sanction body. Got to do better there. Should have known that tire wear wasn't wearing at Martinsville, and we got to do better. Like, those are the things, because you can't allow a budget to get in the way of the product. And I'm just calling it out. That's business 101. We all know that. And NASCAR won't like me saying those harsh words, but it's true. And I'm not going to go without, there's nothing I hate worse than somebody that puts a complaint in and doesn't have an answer. My answer is figure out a budget, figure out a way. We have a test team. We have teams that are capable of doing this. Get those cars on any racetrack that we have a concern with. Get me some options on the table for some of these short tracks that I can look at as a sanction body and a promoter with my promoter hat on and say, I believe that we can sell this. Our broadcast partners can go on and say, all right, we've made this adjustment. We think it's going to do this. Now, collectively, as a sport, fan base included, let's go out and see if our hard work and our due diligence shines on that racetrack. If it doesn't, make it another adjustment. But I love what I see out of the car, and intermediates. Short tracks need help.
Can I get an amen from the congregation? Hey, again, as always, Clint, your thoughts, and forgive me, I like your approach, but they're spot on. And there are things that people in shall we say, control of this business should be sitting down and not ignoring. But I'm interested. You mentioned the short tracks. I'm also heavily involved, thanks to Advanced Auto Parts, with the NASCAR Advanced Weekly Racing Series that they put a lot of financial commitment behind. You were born and bred on the short tracks. The short tracks are still there. If I sure if you took your boots off right now, there'd be some clay somewhere. So, how important do you think it is, Clint Bowyer, to maximize the reconnect between the pinnacle, the top 3 series, and the NASCAR short tracks or short tracks in general?
So you see it. I'm kind of in my little hangout man cave barn over here, so to speak. It's got a pretty good sized bar right here. But I was at my old man's. My old man sold his towing company, and my back corner, right where old Clint Bowyer started. That's where all the magic happened. So many nights, me and the old man down there arguing, having fun, listening to Elvis on the radio. But hold on. You asked what it meant. Check this baby out. You see that right there? I saw it, that guy's like, I'll be damned. Lakeside Speedway, NASCAR weekly racing track, 2001. That was the old Frostbite Open Invitational, by the way. Bam! And won that baby. I saw it. I was like, there's only one damn trophy in here is what I'm trying to say. And I saw that one. It's an old school trophy. It's kind of an old barn. So I thought it was perfect. But that meant something to me. That's what put drivers like myself, Carl Edwards, Matt Kenseth, the list goes on, and Denny Hamlin. That weekly racing series, without it, there's no way in hell I'd have ever made it to this level in the sport. Every sport has stepping stones, whether it's, my nephew playing baseball. We started with rec ball. Now we're travel ball. Hopefully he gets seen, by a college, and then AAA, and the stepping stones goes on. Racing is no different. NASCAR is no different. And I think it is so important to never lose track of that. We have to have these weekly racing tracks, which, by the way, make up the majority of our fan base. 90% of our NASCAR fan base, when they're there on a Sunday, are usually at their weekly racing track down the road somewhere on a Friday and Saturday night watching their local heroes, dreaming of being there on Sunday. That's how the product works. We ever lose track of that? I love iRacing. I'm an iRacing guy, and I'm telling you, there is no product that blows your mind more than iRacing. I'm on it all the time. Everybody, my peers, the NASCAR guys are on it every night. It has a place, but it's not a stepping stone. Sorry. There's nothing that replaces those Friday and Saturday night under the lights, beating and banging, grinding it out, working hard on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to get back to that next weekend. That is the base of our sport. And without it, we collapse. There is no top. The top of the mountain, the base of it holds it. And you've got to climb your ass to the top of it. Once you get there, it's a good feeling. But without that climb, it doesn't happen.
I've always said the difference between when you were driving a Cup car or Kevin Harvick or anybody at the Cup level and the guys that compete, whether it's Lakeside Speedway, you name a local short track, is when they're done, they don't board a corporate jet. They don't have a series of handlers. They climb into the cab of whatever they're towing their race car with, take it back to the garage, and then burn the midnight oil until their time to load it up and go back to the track again, and then put their ass on the line in front of their friends and family. To me, that's the definition of passion.
Well, without a doubt. I mean, I don't know how many times, hey, it was either a Taco Bell night or Outback Steakhouse. How good a night did you have? That's the way it was, man. You run like a busted up out there and didn't get it done, man. I'm telling you, every night, my old man is pulling a Taco Bell. So I guess this is all we can afford. You win, we're headed Outback, baby. It's just the way it is. But I love that. I'm telling you, the other aspect of that, I'm not lying. Those were the best years of my racing life. We had so much fun. The people, the followers, which, by the way, I wasn't the only one that went on this ride. So many fans, uncles, people that helped me get there. You look over your shoulder on any given weekend at a NASCAR track, you're like, oh my God, that guy's been following me in the grandstand since Lakeside in 2001 with that trophy right there. Look over at Kansas Speedway, and there the guy still stands. It's those memories and those people that you take with you, they last if you do a good job and you take care of them. It ain't no different than anything in life. He's going to open some doors for you. You got to be willing, courageous enough to blow through that damn thing, and then humble enough to get in there and remember where you come from, and make sure that you take care of business.
Listen, it's been a treat. Could go on for hours and hours. Don't be a stranger, because you've got a lot to say that is extremely important. You say it with emphasis and with passion. Hey, Clint, good luck. Appreciate it. And really, don't be a stranger here in the wind tunnel, okay? Because you've got a forum here, not quite as massive as the one you've got working with Mike Joy and that revolving door of analysts that Fox is bringing on board this year. But you're always welcome, because your points are just so important to get out there.
Man, I appreciate it. These podcasts always get me in trouble, though. I get comfortable hanging out with my buddies, and then next thing you know, you've run your mouth too much, and NASCAR's calling.
Hey, you'll get over it, and they'll get over it, okay?
It's all good till Fox Boss calls. I'm good. I can handle NASCAR. It's when the other one calls. That's when it's time to call it off. Pull the plug. Pull and shoots, baby. We're done.
Hey, thanks, man.
Thanks, pal. See ya.